A very warm welcome and a good afternoon to all of you. I'm super excited to welcome you all for yet another exciting live roundtable discussion on fluid workplace, how hybrid framework will change the future of work, curated by Economic Times, HR World, and Randstad. My name is Soumya, and I'm going to be your host for today's session. Today, we have come together with a powerful panel to sketch a framework on the future of work, where we're going to discuss the fluid workforce and the role of technology in the hybrid world. Multiple surveys around the world have highlighted that a large chunk of employees want to continue with the hybrid model. I too am one of those. Well, this is going to be a reality, and organizations have already started accepting it. The companies and people leaders are designing their work culture, their policies, and ethics around the hybrid work model. And in a nutshell, if I can put it across, the hybrid framework will change the future of work. Hybrid working is an effective solution for organizations as they transition into the next phase of work. And I know this sounds quite exciting. It might be a little much of a contemplation that we all are doing. So today we're going to try and find answers to many more questions like this. I am elated to welcome the dynamic panel of speakers for this intriguing and yet another super promising session. Opening it with Anjali Raghuvanshi. Anjali is a strategic business partner who facilitates, supports, and challenges business leaders along with anticipating the much needed focus and change in the people management practices. She is passionate about societal and environmental causes and is currently building a robust social responsibility framework at Randstad India. She also associates with campuses and B schools in shaping the young minds and building talent for tomorrow. Welcome, Anjali.
Thank you so much.
Moving next to is Matilda Charles. Matilda comes with 30 plus years of experience in increasing the responsibilities in people practice areas of HR strategy formulation, budgeting, workforce planning, leadership pipeline, comp and ben, performance management, learning architecture, and much more. She has also been leading and mentoring the projects in design thinking in HR. She's an expert in strategic leadership, directing organizational planning and effectiveness. Welcome, Matilda. And next in line is Rohit Mogra. Rohit is an alumnus of XLRI Jamshedpur and has a rich and varied experience of more than 2 decades in the field of human capital management. In the last 20 plus years, he's worked in various domains of HR. In his current role as a director HR, Rohit is heading the HR for Deutsche Bank's technology team and the entire APAC region. In his role, he's responsible for driving Deutsche Bank's people strategy amongst 5,000 plus technologists across the APAC region, with a key focus on building leadership, capabilities, and succession planning. Welcome, Rohit.
Thank you so much, Soumya.
Great. And yes, like I always say, it's going to be the last, but not the least, definitely not. Super excited to have Sudipto Mandal with us. Sudipto comes with 20 plus years of industry experience encompassing the entire gamut of core HR function and also the techno-functional of Oracle HRMS consultancy. In his current role at Star Cement, he's responsible for developing and executing the HR strategy towards building a future-ready organization and in maintaining its market leadership in the region. I know this panel is really awaited and all of you are really looking forward to it. So I'm going to get started onto the discussion. But yes, before that, please park your questions for the end of the session. We definitely have budgeted time and I'm going to try and find answers for all of them. So keep sharing your reflections and questions throughout the session as well as for the end of it. And yes, now I am going to start. It looks like a very starlit panel. Let me just start with Anjali first. Anjali, my question for you is going to be that, you are a progressed, focused HR leader with a very strong emphasis on future readiness. Are organizations now designing a work strategy more aligned to a distributed or if I would say a co-located workforce? What would you try to highlight, if I ask you the stepping stones in this journey?
Sure. Thank you so much, Soumya, and thank you for a wonderful start. And just to, first thing I would like to tell the audience, and of course, we have a esteemed panel present over here with different contexts and industries that they come from. I think to me, the context plays a big role, and your business model plays a big role before you decide whether it's a distributed workforce or it's a co-located one. And I know the fad is around, everybody is talking about hybrid, everybody is saying that it's a fluid workplace. But to me, before you even step into that, most important that you are aware of what your business model is asking and how are you going to meet the objectives of your organization basis the model that's prevailing. And in line with what the expectations of the employees are, I think what works the best is being transparent. So I do know that a lot of employees, in fact, we experience it. We interview thousands of candidates every day. And when we talk to them, most people these days are searching for organizations, in fact, giving reasons like, my organization is asking me to come back to work. I'm not comfortable. I'm looking for a job where I don't have to come to work, right? So those are becoming bigger reasons to change jobs. And it's a reality. However, business also has to deal with its own reality. So I think what works best is when we are transparent and we tell our employees upfront that what can work, what cannot work. And then when they're aware and they make decisions and are aware of the situations, it kind of brings a bit of trust in them. So I think to me, that's very, very important. Number one point before we even discuss, what works for whom. The second thing is what I'm also realizing, and because we are also one of the organizations who are working in terms of how the workplace is going to look like in 2022, not just that, but even as we look at future focused workplaces. So what is coming out is that earlier and for decades, we have associated ourselves to a physical space, right? Our identity of an office is a office where we physically go, we sit and we meet our colleagues. So it's going to take a lot for especially organizations who are deciding for a distributed workforce to be like, how do I identify with my workplace? I think that is going to be a big question. And we are talking about belongingness, etc. I think now work is going to define your identity and work is going to define how you associate with your workplace, right? So meaningful and purpose driven work is becoming a big talk because people definitely want to have some meaning in what they do, especially when you're sitting in your home where there are multiple priorities. How do you bring about that passion to drive what you are supposed to drive at work? So I think that is the second element. And third would be we all as an organization, and there could be different elements. It's about care, it's about trust as an organization that we build. But experience is going to play a very, very big role in terms of how an employee is experiencing an organization. Right now, I'm sitting behind this desk at my home. How is it that I'm experiencing my organization? And that goes from technology to your manager to every other touch point that you have today in the organization, including leadership and the way we are guiding our people. So I think those to me at a very broad level are some things that we all will have to think as we make decisions. Some can, some cannot, but those who can will have to keep these things in mind as well. So that's my suggestion.
I think that is really good to know, Anjali. Thank you so much. And I love your honesty where you say that, some can and some cannot. I think that acceptance is so important. And I totally love and agree with what the three, pillars, if you would say that what your business model demands. Work is definitely going to, define your identity and these experience touch points. And I'm sure as we progress on this journey, these experience touch points will continue to evolve. So that is something is beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. That brings me to one of the next questions in mind. And technology is just one of those bedrocks for every conversation that we do, even in our personal life or a professional life. So Rohit, I'm going to come on to you now. You have contributed to the area of performance management in various capacities. From your years of experience, how will you kind of define that increasing the flexibility and ownership actually enhances the productivity of the fluid workforce? We would love to hear some examples.
Sure, Soumya. And, first of all, thanks, Anjali, for setting the context so beautifully. And, I would like to just latch on to your catchphrase that, some can and some cannot. And that's the biggest acceptance that we have to begin with, because I personally feel this entire fluidity is also a privilege, which not many are able to enjoy it. We have seen this if even in the pandemic, if the nation has to move, the economy has to survive. not everyone had the privilege to work from home. Some had the mandatory constraints to be out there and keep the nation running, whether it's about our frontline workers, which include not only just health workers but also our banking partners, and all other essential services. And some people who could have worked from home, but the entire infrastructure never supported them. Because we can't forget that, today, as we are talking about it, a very big reality is that 50 to 60% of our employable population is still into rural, belongs to the rural India. And people who are, coming to those cities like Pune, Bangalore, Mumbai to work, when the work was not happening from the office environment, they had to move back, and this moving back has not been a very easy transition. Today, if I just give you an example of my own organization, the organization which only houses in maybe 4 cities in India, today our employees who are working from home are distributed into 29 different cities. And that's when we realize that, okay, now, to whenever the return to office environment also happens, how well we are going to take that into account, how much we are going to risk that piece as to who all can travel and what all distance they can travel. Some have vacated their entire PG accommodations, their rental accommodations, because they didn't have any visibility as to how things will unfold. So with all these things, one, count our blessings, count our, be grateful to whatever has, maybe has not impacted us negatively. But in this whole period, all those of us who are in the job, who are in, helping the economy move forward, we need to count that this blessing also cannot be ignored. And with that, if we move on to productivity piece, I think first and foremost, most important part is that productivity is also a definition which is going to change big time now. It's can no longer be defined by how many hours we have clocked. It's going to be about what we have achieved in those hours that we have worked. And when is not at all a question over here, because when itself is what defines the flexibility. If I have to give an example from my own workspace of technology, I think if we compare, or most of us would have studied, this is a very, very learned panel, as well as the audience I know are coming from various walks of industries and other, walks of life. We all could, feel and have read about Google and the likes of Facebook and all those tech giants, where they had to create an office environment which is having sleeping pods, having, meeting rooms, having a place to, have a kind of dedicated or uninterrupted thinking process to flow on, so that, because we all felt that maybe the uninterrupted thinking entire support system is what is going to help us think well and concentrate on the task at hand. Today, that same environment is what this flexibility is providing, when an employee is at his or her comfort zone and is able to focus on the work at his or her own wish list as to when they want to do it. There are people who are working from hills, there are people who are working from maybe closer to beaches if there's a possibility of doing so. And then you can't ignore that working from your own home environment also can be very beneficial. But yes, at the same time, I cannot ignore and cannot take away the challenge that also comes with it. And maybe later in the session we will talk about those challenge, but I'll focus right now only on the productive part of it. And in this period we have seen, first and most important measure of productivity that we have seen is the entire, the attendance, one could call it as. There were times that people could not have planned for their holidays, could not have planned for any kind of medical emergencies, which still is not possible. But it had it not been for the only those who were impacted because of pandemic, I think people's planned leave has gone many folds. People are able to plan well for the events. There are not many of those unplanned events that are interrupting the work supply. So we are seeing, productivity levels at all time high. But yes, that also gives a lot of responsibility on the employer, because this productivity, is it sustainable or not? Is it coming at a cost of an employee burnout? Is something that we need to consciously keep in track of. And that's something what we are also doing, that while we are working remotely, we are also encouraging managers and employees to ensure that they're availing all their leaves. Even if it means today you cannot move out, cannot go on a vacation, but take time off. Move out of this room, which is now my office, to maybe interact with my family, which is in the other room. Because sometimes we have just these lines between this office and office room, and a personal room is also blurred. We all are in the same roof, but the lines are blurring big time. And this is what we need to work on. Yes, otherwise I think if one has to put up a measures like velocity of releases, quality of codes, attendance, I think those all things are moving up. And I think we just need to keep an eye on it, that they are sustainable. This flexibility, I think, has also given a big advantage of our ability to attract diverse talent pool. And when I talk about diverse talent pool, it's just not gender diversity. I think we have been able to not only attack gender diversity because today women have flexibility to work from wherever they are. And so they don't have to change the job, change the location because of any other important personal commitments. So they are now able to return to work very well. Coming to PWDs, I think people always had an apprehension that, if I get into an office environment, how conducive that workplace would be. No matter how organizations make an effort, but yes, there could be some apprehension that may be inherent, and that's what is now taken care because people are now working from their space and they are far more confident of contributing. In the same period, I think we were also able to reach out to a diversity on front of LGBTQI. Their transition into workplace is also happening seamlessly. And the most important part is about increasing the generational diversity, which is going to be a reality, but how quickly we're able to embrace it. And I'm very happy to share that in this whole period of pandemic, we have been able to triple our numbers of fresh hires. For the years when before pandemic, when we used to hire maybe 120 or grads into just technology alone and put together other streams, we were around 300 odd people. This year just 300 close to is the number which we only into our technology piece. Overall we could increase the number to almost 450 plus campus hires, and getting those generation which is vibrant into the workforce, that's also another level of diversity, but another level of challenge as to how they would integrate into a workspace. Today if they were studying into a NIT Suratkal and maybe staying at somewhere in Kerala, yes, they are today part of the workforce, but one fine day they'll have to get into a place which is could be Pune, Mumbai or Bangalore. Right now yes, they have a flexibility, they don't have to bother that being a first job how I'm going to stay so away. Yeah, today they're in the comforts of their with the families. So that's another piece. Another flexibility that has come up, I think, or I would say what has helped in productivity is also about the reduced attrition rates. There's no to doubt that I think job shopping has increased big time. That is what is resulting into an unprecedented offer dropouts. But this unprecedented offer dropouts is also a reflection that yes, I may be out for shopping for a job, but I'm not very serious to change a job. And this piece is like, double whammy for those organizations which are growing. Yes, I'm able to retain my own workforce well, but I'm not able to attract new talent with the same amount of effort that was enough in the earlier days. But this retention is helping increase the productivity because you are able to now leverage all the benefits of a learning curve. And this is something is very, very big plus point, and which is also resulting into the learning and development taken a new shape altogether. Today you have a flexibility to learn what you want, learn what when you want, and the whole receptivity towards this learning curriculum has gone up manifold. Like the seminar, it is not a possibility. Had it been a regular environment, most of us would have traveled on a physical location to Bombay, and then all the audience also would have come during a working day. But it's so flexible, you just switch off one window of office Skype and log on to maybe a Zoom, and you are still able to attend it without wasting time in travel, without planning anything that okay, travel time and is how to make up for my work, because while I'm on the seminar, yes, I can still address some of the work requirements. There are some of the examples that come to my mind. Back to you,
Yeah,
Soumya. And sorry for a
thank
longer.
you. No, Roy, thank you so much. And I think you all had like our ears to it, There is so much that you mentioned, and I totally, love this concept of redefining the productivity. And yes, the empathy, or probably we have more conscious employers now. The leaders have become conscious. I think that concept or that phenomena was missing in the last, before COVID hit us. And now it is one of those very important imperatives that we see. Love that. And I actually want to come on to Matilda now. Matilda, I feel that the difference in kind of experiences, the emotions, and also the work aspirations of employees on what works best for them would be a very crucial, question to ask them as we set out to kind of, reimagine the employee experience. So I would love to hear from you that, when you look back on your 30 plus years in workforce planning, what are the some of the reflections that you would like to share with us?
Yes, Soumya, there has been a sea of reflections in the way I devised several integral frameworks for workforce planning over these 3 decades. I vividly recall the paper-based selection process in the good old 90s to the current wholesome digital hiring. Right from a traditional role applicant to role-based assessments, to gauging behavioral competencies, to hiring for attitude, to hiring emerging professionals straight from colleges and universities, and that too virtually, to hiring for special talents in the areas of give back, CSR, community development, say sports, fun champions, women advocates, innovation evangelists, and so on and so forth. All of these really require a good level of data analytics and talent pool intelligence. Thanks to the social media, where you get to know a plethora of different people and connect with them to build relationships on an ongoing basis. So, with a lot of intense collaboration with the talent acquisition team, the business stakeholders, the external vendor partners, social media as well, and aspiring candidates, it plays a very pivotal role in this entire setup. And one of the things that we've been consciously doing as a part of the workforce planning is to meet, greet, and eat with our potential associates, and that has been a very rewarding experience for both the candidates and the leadership team at Allscripts during the wait period while they're preparing to onboard. These connect sessions have definitely increased and enhanced engagement, and has also enabled us to get them quickly acclimatized into our culture, and they're able to absorb the culture as well. So that's something that's been very, very encouraging and rewarding for us. I particularly look for transferable skills when I plan the workforce, and that has given me a competitive edge to plug and play, to balance the team's aspirations and the business needs in a wholesome manner. And of course, I have also made my share of hiring mistakes, which have been, of course, corrected and then moved on thereafter. While today I see candidates wanting to design their own careers, they are not very much interested in the traditional career path. Instead, they would like to explore their calling and be a CEO of their own roles, where work becomes a vital part of their life and they blend work to a hobby. That's what they have envisioned their own careers. That's what I'm seeing a lot more these days. And I also see a lifetime opportunity right now where the work concept itself, to reset that into a hybrid model where one will be able to have ample freedom, and the way they kind of design their life will be more in terms of how they work with more purpose, productivity, agility, and flexibility. So definitely we have the blueprints as we want to navigate through this new journey. In fact, the way the onboarding happens as of now is more like the shipping of laptops and other infrastructural accessories to their homes is the new way of welcoming the new hires as we onboard, and that's the new virtual onboarding experience.
Thank you so much, Matilda. I think it was an essence of what Anjali said and what Rohit shared. I think that was just an intertwined thing, but thank you so much for putting that across. And like we're discussing, it's a hybrid world of work and there's diversity. So I'm going to come on to my fourth speaker, Sudipto, who's actually holding the hybrid, I would say, fort, because he's in the office today. So Sudipto, thank you so much for joining us from the office. I think we've spoken a lot about how things have changed. There is one element which we are saying that, the leadership also needs to change. I think those are the front runners who will kind of, look for that change, embrace that change, and then pass on that change. So that is a very important role that you all have to play. And I'm going to ask you, one question around it that would be really exciting to know, that how leadership needs to be retrained for this new world of work.
Yes, you are right, Soumya. I think leadership and culture, I think these are the two bedrocks, for any change process to take place. And I would also say they are not only the bedrock, but there are times they're also proof of the pudding. You actually experience that through these two bedrocks, right? And thank you for noticing that I'm in office, and that kind of reminds me of what Rohit talked about, that the privilege, and so did Anjali, in terms of can do or can't do, right? With this note, I think I'll just try to respond to your question. I think, primarily there are about three things that which is impacting the leadership, right? Whether it is the earlier situation and so much more in the change situation right now. One is about the result orientation, right? So leadership is all about how to be solution centric, how to be result oriented. So that how to build that culture is, I think that's one important aspect leadership has to focus more on. Most importantly, I think even before this, I would say the focus on fundamental and basics. See, leadership was there forever, right? And there is always this question whether it should be, built or it should be, is it ingrained? But I think this whole pandemic situation actually brought out that essence, saying that the focus on basics and fundamentals and how leadership is actually embracing this and focusing on that, that's going to be more and more evident. Just remember that when 1.5 years ago pandemic started, all so-called fancy terminologies, so-called business continuity plan, everything went out of the window and people started talking about whether we are going to leave or not because of the pandemic was so uncertain. And then second thing was whether we are going to have our job or not, and whether we're going to have our salary or not. So if leadership is really focusing on the aspect of making your business sustainable, then I think in this kind of adverse situation, you would still be able to hold the fort and say, okay, fine, we take care of our employees, we'll be able to maintain their job and we'll be able to pay them their salary, so on and so forth, right? So I think that's where the taste of the leadership that's coming in. So second point, I would also like to say that, VUCA world has shown a lot of changes across the world, and we had multiple number of seminars for the last 1 decade. But no VUCA could anticipate the kind of VUCA that we are experiencing right now. So this is where I think the whole concept of agility, innovation, adaptability, that all is really coming in, and that's where leadership has to really play that role, right? At the same time, while we talked more about these concepts from the point of view of sustaining your business or being competitive in the market, whether you are a startup or you are a 200 years old organization, but today we are bringing in another important dimension, and that's where I again and again say that focus on the depth and fundamental is important. That what is your human relation quotient? So being a leader, how do you balance between your business growth, sustainability with the depth of human relation through enhanced communication, right? Real-time communication, empathy, what is your value on caring, how actually exhibit that and implement that, and how do employees actually experience that? Anjali talked about that leadership, to talk about the experience and touch, right? So that is what is becoming more and more important. Now the question is again, I think this all we knew, but somehow we could bypass or put it under the carpet so far. But now the situation has really putting us into the situation that the real test has to come in front, right? And while we are talking so far about this in the context of an organization, but let's not forget that an organization is actually a part of the society. So without having that context of the society, I think we're not going to survive. Even pandemic actually showed us that it is boundaryless, right? So it could start from China, but it could spread all across the continents, right? So in that context, the leadership has to also elevate in terms of embracing, changes in the context of ESG. The ESG was not so well known, even though it's a board requirement earlier. But now environment, safety, governance, those aspects are becoming more and more important in this new context. The question is that now, do we have this in our existing leadership, or we need to train them, right? So that's where I think even the importance of training comes in, importance of the, I also believe that leadership is not something which can be trained completely, right? But the point is that leadership is also to do with the wisdom, right? So when you put this wisdom into the leaders' minds and you make them aware about that, that's where the elevations start happening, right? So the situation leadership, agility, those things are going to be more and more important in the current context, which is actually happening today, right? And the last point I would like to say is that in this boundaryless work, when you are talking about the multicultural, employee set, gig economy coming in, how leadership is also, training their mind in terms of the focusing on the DNI. That's going to be another important aspect. I think this is a real test where leadership has to really go back and really constantly reflect. Same time, HR, which is a part of the leadership, has to constantly do their job well in terms of focusing on those areas I just talked about in terms of the retraining the leadership.
I think, Sudipto, thank you so much for sharing that. And I really love your honesty that, it takes a lot of courage to say that, that it's really not possible to kind of retrain your entire leadership. There has to be an element of wisdom. And I think that is the honesty that really goes down to our hearts. So thank you so much for sharing that. I think it was a beautiful sum up. Anjali, I'm going to come back to you. I think we've discussed a lot about what are these imperative pillars around which we need to build on a new world of work, if I would say, and who can deny the presence and the charisma of technology in it. So I'm sure the audience would also love to know that, if we have to kind of make and sustain this hybrid world of work, we desperately need to invest in technology. So my question to you would be that, what tools and solutions would you like to highlight that kind of made this journey of transformation more seamless for you? So that would be like a great takeaway for all of us.
Sure. Thank you so much, Soumya. And I was also seeing a lot of questions coming in, and I can see there's a lot of questions people have in their mind as they look at hybrid. Just stressing upon the technology bit, I think about when you were in office, something that you were able to do the best, which is reaching out to your colleagues, right? That is one aspect you miss when you are sitting at home. Then you just feel like talking to a colleague, and you kind of, you can't do that because you think, okay, how do I go to a desk? There is no other desk to go. So I think one thing, and we as an organization completely work on Google Suite. So it's completely Google Meet to Google Hangouts. I think one functionality that people have used the maximum in last 1.5 years is chat. And I think that is the easiest way today to get to a colleague, and you ping. And of course, not every time you have a response immediately, but you do know that at some point in time, a colleague is going to see and respond back. I think that is being used the maximum. That's one technology to help you connect. But I think where organizations are investing in and where organizations are looking to invest is around connect. Because connect is one aspect you miss the most, being away from your core workplace. So, looking at whether socializing at work is the other thing, because social well-being at work is a big question that's coming up as well. So a lot of investment is going in technology where colleagues can meet with each other, they can share, they can have a sense of community, despite not being there in office. So a lot of tools, we have also invested in a tool which actually lets us build community, have channels where we can speak up, share things, because sharing is another thing. We can't just move and walk around and ask and talk to people. So how do you share what you're working on and learn from someone if they've already done something around this? So that sense of community is where most organizations are trying to, build. And also, we know that there are certain set of people who were your influencers when you were at a workplace. So these tools also help you connecting with the influencers, they being your brand champs, they being the ones who are evangelizing about topics. So I think this is becoming a heavier investment zone. And of course, the other aspect is how do you make your employees' job easy, work easy every day? So there are several tools. I'm sure every organization has its own tools on which people work. So how do you organize work for an employee? I think that's the other focus area that's being spoken about. The easier you can make it so that I can manage my work much easier. I know exactly when I come in, where do I log in, what I then next need to do, etc. Especially where productivity is very, very key, and and technology is being used. So that's the second aspect I definitely see where a lot of investment is going in. Third, we are also experiencing that we work with different kind of talent, right? Every organization's average age is very different with which they work in. So the younger your workforce sometimes becomes, you also have to look at gamification of many things. I mean, these days we are talking about how to gamify your targets, how to gamify your learning, and also hyper personalization. And technology is a very good way of bringing hyper personalization at work. I mean, I want to see what I need. I don't want to see everything that you want to show me. So how can you do that? So I think tools are becoming very, very helpful in spaces like this. So we are looking at, okay, if I have a challenge in achieving my target, but my need of learning may be very different from, say, what Rohit may want. So my tool is going to give me that, okay, these are the two programs, Anjali, if you try and do, maybe you will be able to be better at your work tomorrow. So those are the things that I am seeing, and we are all looking to invest. And that also relates to my first point as I opened up about great experience, right? Look at your employee just the way you look at your customer. I know it's a cliche which has been spoken many a times, but the fact of life is that. And actually, we as an organization talk about delighting people, and delighting people is also about your employees. The more great experience I have, I am going to translate that to my customer because I'm enjoying doing what I'm doing, right? So that to me is how I look at technology playing a role. I think that's where I see most people also kind of directionally moving.
I think that was fantastic, Anjali. Thank you so much. And I really like that, gamification is just so cool. So I would definitely like to discuss this more with you, but I'm going to come back. Rohit, since we're talking about technology, how can I let go of you? So your career has spanned, in across several industries, which are all fueled by the technology. So what are your thoughts or views on, the right tools and solutions in a way that have kind of, proliferated this entire transition and made it more acceptable and, achievable, if I would ask?
Sure, Soumya. And I think, as you rightly called it out, that most of the industry that I worked with, yes, they are now all fueled by technology, and some of them are also fueling technology, I would say. Especially my previous employer, like, where I worked with Airtel, and I think today mobile companies in this last pandemic have played such an important role, and that's what has enabled most of us to, work from home. And maybe to start with the technology solution alone, we have this question when you putting it across about tools and solutions, and maybe I would like to add a dimension as I respond, is also about the approach towards this piece. So there's no two doubt, and it's quite proven that technology adoption got accelerated many folds. For most of the organizations, the entire technology adoption or technology as an agenda just took an unprecedented rate of moving up the ranks to the prioritization, and overnight it became the top notch priority. So even before one could discuss as to what they will do in order to continue getting the revenue, the first piece was, if just to continue, forget about increasing, just to continue getting it, you need to adopt technology. And yes, we all have been beneficiaries of it as customers, as suppliers. And in fact, who could be a better example than maybe my current organization, which is a highly regulated entity like a Deutsche Bank, where you get governed by multiple compliance authorities, central banks across the globe. And at no point of time there was even an iota of doubt that can more than 1 or 2% of people can even work from home. Just to let you know, from a size perspective, it may sound very bizarre for people to even comprehend that the organization, which is almost 13,000 plus strong in the country, we only had maybe 400 to 500 people with an access to laptop. It's not because of cost, it's because of regulation, because you just can't get into the trade settlement executing any kind of confirmations and activity from an home network. And even the data privacy never allowed you to carry that laptop. So laptop was like for very far and few. But overnight, within those 2 weeks, from a 500 to 600 kind of a laptop users, we had to get source, even ship straight away from the suppliers. And within 2 weeks flat, I think 10,000 plus, which was translating into close at that point of time, and today is 99.5% of our workforce became available on work from home capability. And that has a lot of role to play coming from regulators also, because government has also opened up to a thought that yes, today you can go and work from home. Regulators like RBI, central banks, they all are also accepting the idea that yes, with certain firewall, certain compliances put in place, yes, you can and you need to work from home. And then the most important part secondary to it is acceptance of the fact that one, there's no other solution but to work from home for the most of the industries like this, because you cannot risk from a business continuity point of view, also cannot risk that tomorrow this pandemic spreads while in an office environment, then it can have an much bigger impact on the business continuity also. So acceptance that this is what is required. And second part is in our own mindset that we are still miles away from calling ourselves as a country which is having a high speed broadband connectivity from the one corner to another. And if our employees are spread across 29 odd cities, which is into 17 plus states, then it's not possible to accept that, I will have the same amount of bandwidth connectivity which I may be enjoying in Jaipur, where I am right now, vis-a-vis my colleagues who are sitting in maybe Jodhpur or Jaisalmer. And so that's where mobile telephony comes in. That's where also the tools of technology also play a role, that how you can work on tools which are maybe addressing these requirements which are maybe low bandwidth. Gone are those days when you were in office and maybe bandwidth was not a big consideration while taking up a tool or a solution. Today you need to be sure that whichever tool I am taking, will it survive or will it thrive on the bandwidth that is available. So identifying those tools, so whether you want to be on Skype or Zoom, so that's where the technologists will also like to take a call. And then as we increase, as I called out earlier in my response, that we are able to attract diverse talent pool. Now in that diverse talent pool, a big chunk, important piece is also people with disabilities. You're able to attract them, but do you have a supportive technologies for them? And that's where even the adaptive, or what we call as assistive technologies, also had to play a role, because we can't hire them and then expect them to work on the same tool which maybe I am using. So they need a lot of assistive devices, and that availability and accessibility to those devices was a big key. Then I think the most important one beyond technology is the manager's mindset or leadership mindset, which Sudipto also alluded to. And I think this is also one of the questions which I'll take this opportunity. I think Dr. Philemon raised this question, how you manage performance. And I think last year was, for majority of the organization, was the first year when 100% of the organization was getting evaluated, or performance assessment was happening on a remote environment. And this was a big uh, opportunity for us, or other requirement for the organization, to ensure that both manager and the employee are able to hold on to this meaningful conversation with a lot of sensitivities involved. We were having this conversation at the back of, maybe on the outset of second wave, some of them, because depending upon the kind of calendar they were following, some of them having right in the middle of second wave. And I think second wave was like big eye opener, because we just don't know who in the family of an employee is suffering, at what stage they are. Has someone, it's possible that, because we never knew that someone may be battling a lot of medical or family stress around it. So managers were made to sensitize that, while we're talking to them, be aware of it. It was unfortunate that we were even had a team where in back to back we ended up losing 2 to 3 employees who succumbed to COVID. And suddenly we realized that it was just not about managing an emotional stress of one person. We were talking about a group counseling, because suddenly a team which lost 3 of its colleague was unable to just gather, and a kind of fear that set in. And that's where even that mindset also played a role, that in this remote and fluid environment, you have to get people along, help them overcome this fear. And this is just not left to them, it's also their family members. And that is what bring me to segue, that where we use the technology to even ended up connecting with the employees and their family members also.
Yeah.
Getting onto the kids, we have encroached upon kids play room to convert into our office room. So we also owe something to those kids who are also not able to step out. And we even had to make our engagement programs on a digital environment catering to the kids, right from
Yes.
hosting magic shows, storytelling, or even some musical evenings, so that even kids can also come and be a part of this family, which ultimately we owe it to them, because we have taken away their spaces.
Yeah, thank you, Roy. Thank you so much. And I think you covered it all, how it was. And it's just not about employees, it's about much more now. I think that is something that we all have learned. So I'm just being mindful of the time that we have with everyone. And, I have to take the questions. So one element that we're talking about that has come out is well-being. Why it is so important, why this conversation or this word was hardly spoken about before those 14 months. I would love to kind of delve deep on that. And Matilda, I'm coming to you because you have been a veteran in nurturing talent through strategic initiatives on employee well-being and engagement. So, what are some of the major initiatives at Allscripts that were launched since the pandemic struck? So, if you could share one or two with us, it would be great.
Sure. So during this work from home period since last year, 2 hours that many of our associates spent commuting daily has been fully saved now. Our associates have been using that time for investing in quality time with family, indulging in fitness, education, training, and so on and so forth. We embarked on many ideas to make the work from home experiences more engaging and energizing, right from virtual birthday celebrations to work anniversaries to virtual coffee breaks to virtual baby showers. This kept the team on a very continuous basis in a high swing of fellowship and fun and camaraderie. We very intentionally launched a virtual engagement called What's Up All Scripts on the Yammer platform, which brought all our associates together, sharing likenesses and practices on themes such as healthy cooking, mental health activities, workspace at home. Our employees created their own work spots at home and shared pictures of them. And some of them had different interests like gardening and sapling plantation, etc. and etc. So all these platforms definitely gave a huge and a continuous engagement platforms. My team was very extensively focused on employee care, wherein additional insurance top up for COVID-19 ailment and home care treatments were launched. Furthermore, once a month's worth of additional recovery leaves and compassionate packages worth more than 6 years of salary for the bereaving families were provided as well, coupled with counseling forums to cope up with the irreparable loss. So these were hard realities that we had to go through as well. Happily, lockdown was another motivational session, and we also had COVID-19 dietary tips, fitness demos, ergonomics. All of these were periodically hosted, and we on the fun side we also anchored things like virtual Allscripts Got Talent, where our associates and their families performed live dances, singing, musical performances, online games. We had housey, chess, and so on and so forth, including dressing competitions that were anchored. On the business side, we also had the virtual technical quality summit, which focused on 360-degree perspectives on the product quality, wherein our internal presenters with expertise in the areas of design, automation, performance, AI, ML, SAFe, etc., imparted deep learning. So these were some great stuff that engaged with the teams as well. A digital wellness app that provided point-based rewards for our employees as they increased their daily step counts is another example. And we had a whole bunch of other wellness programs, including virtual floor walks with live demonstrations of wellness, including videos and fitness tips. So all of this gave a huge plethora of wellness strength out with our employees. In addition, we also had the internal mentoring circles that were very deliberately built across the globe, where we drove the engagement across different platforms to enhance learning, networking, and so on and so forth. We had online book reviews because we do have a whole bunch of voracious readers in our company, and we anchored learning platforms called All Read to spark additional learning as well. In fact, we even have a few authors in our company, and we're very proud of. We introduced something called the Quarterly Recharge Day, where the entire company across the world is shut down just to rewind and be with our families one day every quarter, which is again a big win. We also had a no meetings week to combat meeting fatigue and to fully focus on things like whiteboarding, think tank, ideation. And all of these were very successfully, done through the virtual platform. So that's another big thing. And towards the end of the year, of course, we had the year-end Thanksgiving for all our associates by celebrating the attitude of gratitude culture. And then we had various, categories of recognition and rewards that were bestowed to cultivate the spirit of giving. So these were all some few examples to share with.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matilda. I totally agree that, happiness and well-being both are holistic. So thank you for sharing that. And I know we just have about 10 minutes, so I'm very quickly coming to Sudipto. Sudipto, 2/3 of your workforce has been out in the open. And it has been an imperative in a way that how do leaders kind of ensure that fairness is perceived by the entire organization. Taking cognizance of this, it would be really interesting to hear from you that how important is inclusion and fairness as we reimagine the workplace of tomorrow.
Yeah, Soumya, I mean, you said it. Yes, 2/3 of my workforce is actually, they're out on the street or they are doing the night shift on the shop floor. Okay, I'll come back to that later. But I think the two words that you uttered, one is the inclusion and the fairness. I think both are very, very close to heart personally. And I always believe that fairness is the prerequisite for inclusion. Because if you're not fair, then from the organization side, you cannot include the person. In your thought process itself, you're excluding. And on the other hand, the person or the employee or the customer who is receiving an unfairness in his or her mind, automatically, he or she is, going to feel that, okay, it's not included, the person is not included, right? So now there are 4 points. Okay, so first of all, I would say that coming back to that same point that, we have production houses, that means our factories running, and we have our field forces, they're going, meeting dealers, fighting on the street. So while they're doing night shift or they're out on the street, they will be coming from a perceived sense of inequality. The moment we say that 1/3 of my organization is actually working from home. So it's the same privilege which Rohit talked about, right? That in their subconscious mind that, okay, they're enjoying the privilege at home. So we are very conscious about that as an organization. We are very clear that in our kind of a situation, even though there are certain roles call for working from home or opportunity to work from home, but we would not do. We are going to show the camaraderie by going to office and telling them, yes, we are also there with you. And that's about both fairness and inclusion. So if that happens in the mind of 2/3 of your employees, mostly those are people who are at a junior level, they feel that leadership is there with them to support them, not just the talking in the conference or talking in our website, but also actually walking the talk. And I think whenever there is a situation where as per the government rule, only maybe 25% or 50% of the people are coming, are allowed to come to the office, we ensure that leadership team, they will be the first to go to office. That's number one. Number two, even if the situation when there is a full lockdown and people are working from home, then the second question that comes in that how are you being fair in terms of measuring their performance? And that's where I think the whole concept of ROWE, which was a much talked about concept from 90s that was there, but it was never implemented. I think this is the time where ROWE, that's result only work environment, that has to really set in. And I think the pandemic has also taught us that things which are not necessary or nice to have things, they can be eliminated. Only need to do things, right? So ROWE in the implementation in the true sense, it's difficult. It's not so easy. Is actually going to talk about the fairness part. Third, I will talk about also demography, right? So if you really look at organizations like manufacturing or very old organizations, ours is not old, but manufacturing. So we employ a lot of employees who are probably above 50 or so and so forth. So for them, even if given the opportunity working from home, we'll talk about first the digital savviness. There is a kind of phobia for many. I mean, I can see it with my parents that the moment it comes to digital savviness, they feel more scared than what they should be actually, right? So imagine in a work context that can create a tremendous psychological unsafety. So how do you provide that psychological safety? How do you help them in digital literacy? And if you're not able to help them, then how are you going to, typically put them in the right job and other places where they continue to feel or they continue to have that sense of psychological safety is the third point of fairness that we are doing it, we need to do across the fraternity. And in that context, I think that whole role of HR becomes again both prevalent and primitive, both I would say. And even if it is primitive, but it's still fundamental and basic, that it is not the role of HR to learn AI or ML or Python and R as a programming language. We need to understand or know that, but more importantly, that how do we hone our skill more in terms of coaching, counseling, empathizing with people, caring, right, communication. So this coaching, counseling skill, I think, becoming more and more important for HR as well as for the managers. So that's the third point of fairness, to talk about that how are you going to support the demographies where people are not so digitally savvy. And the fourth is that when you talked about so far is employees as in general. But the fourth point is, what about your top talent? In this situation, how are you going to retain top talent? Okay, there are organizations that who probably find that they are not able to give increment, they're not able to promote people, right? So this is where both the leadership and organizational fairness would come in place, and saying that how I'm going to involve in new projects. This pandemic has probably disrupted the business, and that's how it provided a lot of opportunities to do things differently, new projects, new way of working. So how are you going to give this opportunity to your top talent, saying that, okay, and I'm giving you tremendous opportunity to learn and contribute, and that's how we are going to be fair in terms of treating you. The cases where probably you cannot reward them through promotions and salary increases.
I think that is great. Thank you so much, Sudipto. And I know there are like a lot of questions, and Anjali has already started answering them also. Thank you, Anjali. And audience, before we kind of move to a few questions, because the time is just permitting me to take a few, I would like to take one closing statement from all of you before I kind of direct to the questions, is that we've spoken a lot about the hybrid, how it's going to change, how the fluidity will improve. There is one question that's very, very important, is that how exactly we're going to measure the effectiveness of this hybrid model. So can be like one stance, if all of you can take it, that would be great. So I can start with actually Sudipto now. I'll just go in reverse.
Yeah, I think again, the proof of the pudding is the employees, I would say.
Yes.
That nobody can tell better than an employee himself or herself that I have actually contributed, I have actually been productive, I have actually worked on that day, right? While ROWE is a formalized or systematic way of measuring that, but I think eventually it will come down to employee, and that feeling, I think, is something is more important, right? So, and sometimes we do this mistake, and I would like to quickly sum it up, saying in many areas where there are softer issues, people will say, okay, tell me every hour, what is the productivity measurement, right? I give this example that when you are actually planting a sapling, you don't unplug it every day and say that, okay, let me see how much has it grown, right? You rather try to nurture and water it every day, and eventually you will absolutely come to know that it is working or not. That sense nobody
fruits of perseverance. Sudipto, like we say, thank you so much for that, Sudipto. Matilda, I'm just coming to you now. One statement on, or one element on which it would be, kind of measurable, if I would say.
Sure. So while hybrid is the key to understanding the more flexible future of work, it will include a lot of freedom around when to work as well as where to work. To me, trust and accountability will evolve a sense of belongingness and inclusiveness for our associates. And regardless of how we work or where we work, we are together going to be impacting lives across the world, being in the healthcare IT space.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Matilda. Rohit, I'm coming to you.
Sure. I would say, a quick one would be the retention level of employees, especially of those with less than 2 years who have joined us in this pandemic, who have not even experienced the culture from the artifacts of the organization. They've just experienced it over the virtual environment. So will I be able to retain them? because we have added almost 25% of our workforce in this pandemic.
Wow, that's a great measure, I think. Thank you so much for that, Rohit. And Anjali, I'm coming to you now.
Thank you, Soumya. I think everybody had a different perspective, and good to hear that. From my end, I think I will go to the basics, which is in a hybrid workplace, the stronger and strengthened your goal setting processes are, you will not have a challenge in managing productivity. And we've seen that in last 1.5 years, we've been one of the organizations that didn't go back to office. And we are still trying to, and we've still been able to manage the performance purely because of a very strong goal setting process. So I think that is one aspect I would definitely share with the audience.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Anjali. And I know I have overshot on the time. And there are a lot of questions that are pending. So I'm just going to try and take one quick question before we wrap up today's session. And so Parul Sirmal has actually asked us that, and it's a beautiful question, that how can we create a sense of belongingness in this hybrid workplace? I think that is one thing that all leaders are really trying hard to create, that organizational citizenship that's kind of missing or it's going down. How do we kind of take care of that? So maybe just a one-liner would be great. Anybody can take it. It's an open forum now.
So I can take
Maybe
it.
I can. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Matilda, please go ahead.
Yeah, in fact, one of the things that we have been continuing to do, and in fact, since last year, we've been working from home, and we're going to work even until mid of next year. So we have seen that, trust has played a very huge role, because, as everyone else was talking about different aspects of, how do you set goals or measure productivity. For us, this has played a huge role, because our employees, if they are happy, they are going to contribute more. And we've seen that in live examples when things were falling apart, people just, reached out and they did everything to make it, work again. And we also have great testimonies from our clients, our end user clients, and from different stakeholders across the world. So for us, that's the key for us. The trust is the key thing.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry, Rohit, you wanted to add something, I believe.
Yeah, maybe just a couple of points. That apart from trust, I think what will also help is because they cannot experience what this culture is all about from a physical and artifacts point of view. So what is left to us is all of us on the tenured employees as well as people managers to showcase the culture through our behavior, through our especially the empathy around this period. I think that will be the most important piece.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Rohit. Anjali, would you like to add anything? Sudipto?
I think just going by the comments also that I have been seeing, I guess people are also looking at, in terms of, is mental well-being the answer for everything alone, or is it that beyond that one has to go? I think, yes, absolutely. Mental well-being absolutely is an aspect that has come up and must be continued. But yes, it's also about how do you evolve yourself with the evolving workplace, I would say. I think that's the biggest task all of us have. And I always go by the context, because there is nothing like copy-pasting from one organization and trying to do. I don't think that approach works. So that's for the audience to say that look for best practices, but also go back to your context and where you come from. So yeah.
Yeah,
beautiful.
So I would say, the most important factor would be probably the psychological safety, because when you are in a hybrid mode, I think a lot of anxiety sets in knowingly or unknowingly. And if your manager who are actually the reflection of the organization, if they can provide that psychological safety and a sense of fairness, nothing like that. I think that's where the whole belonging is.
Thank you so much for that, Sudipto. And thank you so much once again, Anjali, Matilda, Rohit, and Sudipto. I think this was terrific. I know we went overboard and we could not take all of those questions. So I'm so sorry, everyone. But please feel free to connect to the speakers through LinkedIn. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to answer and direct you. Thank you so much once again for joining us. I think you all have been a wonderful audience throughout, and I would like to take a moment to express my gratitude for the Randstad team and ETHR Worlds team, who have actually worked so tirelessly to put on to this session, and it is a great one. Thank you so much. I am super excited. I had a lot of learnings and reflections to take back. With this, we're going to end the session. Hope to see you for all our upcoming initiatives. Thank you so much and have a great evening ahead. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so
much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.